mermaid, 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 mermaids. Hello, welcome to the vlog of all things mermaids. Yes, you heard that right, mermaids. So first half of this vlog happened a long time ago and I just kind of never finished, but I'm excited. So we're gonna take a little bit of a trip back in time to when I first started this vlog, and then you guys will join me here in the present for the rest of it. Let's get into it. All right, I tried, like, my hair got messed up with the wind and I tried to fix it, but I don't have a brush or any tools in here, so it is what it is. We're currently sitting outside of Barnes & Noble. This is the cute one that I found a few weeks ago that has a really nice patio area, a fire pit, and like the most beautiful cafe I've ever seen. Literally the serotonin rush that I get when I come in this Barnes & Noble is unmatched. So I actually had reserved a copy of the Barnes & Noble edition of The House in the Cerulean Sea, just because it has the really nice, beautiful sprayed edges. So I'm going to come pick that up, and then I think I'm going to try to find a copy of The Little Mermaid. If I could find a copy that I like that's like nice enough, you know. If not, then we'll read a PDF online. But let's hope we find a cute copy. So I'm probably going to sit in this Barnes & Noble and read that for a little bit. And then I think I'm going to go find some seafood, you know, just to go with the under the sea vibes we have going on. I probably won't eat seafood all weekend, but, you know, you got to start off right. Every time I leave the car, my hair decides to go crazy. But, wow. Okay. Just don't look at it. We are at this restaurant that I found. It's called Haiku, and it's an Asian restaurant. So I saw the menu. They have a teriyaki salmon that looks really good. We'll see if that's what I end up getting. If not, maybe sushi. But Barnes & Noble was a bust. I did not find The Little Mermaid, and upon putting it in the app I realized it didn't have it at the store, which is really annoying because I had reserved my book at my like Yonkers Barnes & Noble, and they do have The Little Mermaid. So I'm not gonna make a trip there. This is a sign: do not add more books to your TBR. I think while I'm at the restaurant I'm gonna try to maybe look it up online and see if I can find a PDF or something. So yeah. Well, Mother Nature said, "You're trying to be under the sea? Here's some water, B." It's raining. Well, my friend called me. We are definitely codependent because we all have each other's locations on our phones at all times. And she's like, "What are you doing by my house?" So I invited her to the movies, and we had to get tickets at a different location, like a good 15 minutes earlier than the other time, because this is the only place that had 2 seats. I guess The Little Mermaid is what everyone is doing this weekend. So I'm off to Ridge Hill to watch Little Mermaid a little earlier than expected. By the way, that place was really good. I highly recommend it. It's called Haiku, and it's in Scarsdale. The food felt so fresh and so good. I really enjoyed it, and it came out super fast. This is the book that I got. You would. No, So I've started The Little Mermaid and I can already start to see some of the differences. I'm probably just gonna like give you guys a full update afterwards because it's so short. It's like 30 something pages. But already some of the language is so adorable and I can start to see some of the differences. So like for example, the Little Mermaid, which is not being referred to as Ariel, she's just the Little Mermaid, the youngest mermaid. Her grandmother's in her life, and I think that probably the character of Scuttle is represented in the movie as the grandmother, because the grandmother's kind of like the one that tells her everything about the human world. And like for example, it says, "You see, the grandmother calls little birds fish, for the mermaids would not have understood her as they have never seen a bird." So she kind of like simplifies the human world into like ways that they can understand living under the sea. And I think like that's kind of what Scuttle does, except Scuttle kind of makes things up in the movie. Anyways, I'll update you guys when I'm done. But it's so cute so far. Hopefully it's good. Good morning. It's been literal months since I put down this vlog, but it's okay. Today I'm going to start To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. I don't know what this book is about. I just gave into the hype, I think. I'm not really sure why I bought this, but we're gonna start it today. We'll find out. I will come back and let you know what I figure out, because your girl does not read the back, the blurbs. You know, I like to get in surprised. That being said, I'm really excited because later today I'm gonna get ready and I'm actually already dressed, but gonna, you know, look a little more human, and we're gonna go pick oysters. I think they're called oysters, and pick pearls out of them and make jewelry. So I'm really excited. All right, I'm gonna go find out what this book is about and get back to you. Welcome back to the future. Does it feel good to be in the future? Why am I like this? Okay. I'm gonna pick up this book that I actually got when I went to Detroit, Michigan. It's called The Penguin Book of Mermaids. I'm so sad because I didn't do a books we read on vacation for that trip because I didn't read anything while I was there. But I did have a really, really nice experience book shopping. And I kind of wish I hadn't given up on that vlog. The vloggy vlog. But that's okay. We're going to read The Penguin Book of Mermaids. This says, dive into centuries of mermaid lore with these captivating tales from around the world. So it's I mean, like, basically mermaids and other like merfolk have been around for like centuries, and this book kind of explores different types of like mermaid stories or like beliefs and stuff like that from around the world. They kind of like put it together into like a collection. It doesn't have like a who this is by. I mean, they're all different stories of mermaids around the world, so I guess it's like an edited, let's see, edited by Cristina Bacchilega and Marie Alohalani Brown. So I'm kind of excited for this. This should be a pretty easy read, and I am most excited because I saw that it said a mermaid book from Grimm's Fairy Tales, and I actually have Grimm's Fairy Tales, so I'm hoping that that'll motivate me to read this book, because I really do want to read this book. I just feel intimidated because it's a chunky monkey. Like, this thing is like almost 700 pages. So anyways, Penguin Book of Mermaids, let's do this. So I am 100 pages into the Penguin Book of Mermaids, and I'm actually really enjoying this. It's not that I didn't think I would enjoy it. Obviously, I'm not going to buy a book that I didn't think I was going to enjoy, but it's formatted kind of like, I don't want to say a textbook, but like it's very informational. So there's a section in the beginning where they kind of describe the like historical reference or tie a story into other like references of mermaids first, and that part reads very much like an essay, you know, like in school that you would write to analyze a text, and then it goes into either an excerpt or the full story of some kind of mermaid, sea creature, or something like that. A lot of the like mer beings in this story, I'm really surprised are like, mermaids are usually either seals, from what I can tell, or like a sea snake, which is strange to me. But that's kind of like a common theme. Like, they're either seen as like sea dragons, sea snakes, something like that. And then also there's like a heavy theme of like things happening 3 times. So I've already seen in like a couple of stories, like someone will be eaten by a mermaid, taken away by a mermaid, asked as an offering by a mermaid, or lured to the ocean by a siren. And then somebody who loves them usually is trying to get them back. They usually have to offer the mermaid something, and then the mermaid is like, I'll show you the head of your loved one if you give me that apple. And they give them the apple, they see the head. Then they're like, all right, well, if you give me another apple, I'll show you like from head to waist. And then the third time, it's like, if you give me the third thing, I will let you see them from head to toe. So, and then usually when they're out from head to toe, they either turn into an eagle and fly away, or find some other way to escape. That's actually happened in like 3 or 4 stories across like different cultures, which is the other interesting thing, how like all these stories have just like little things in common, even though they're different cultures. So that's cray. But then again, I also was mostly reading tales from Europe, Greek tales. There also was a portion here from Grimm's Fairy Tales, which I'm in the middle of, Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales, but they call them nixies, like the water creatures. It's also really interesting to see that like the mermaids are, like, nowadays we see mermaids as like the good guys. Like, we love mermaids, we love the Little Mermaid and stuff like that. But then sirens are usually like the bad ones because they lure men to their drowning in the ocean. But in these books, in these stories, mermaids, sea creatures in general, are kind of seen as the bad guys. They also talk about how they're like sexualized, and
things like that. It mostly has to do with men falling in love with mermaids and their life going awry after that. But I've gotten to the original The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen, which I did read at the beginning of this video. And I don't know, wow, this is long. It's like the whole story, I guess. I'm gonna read it again, but I'm pretty sure that I remember the story. The biggest difference, I think, is that, like, well, let's see, all the differences are that the Little Mermaid does not have a name. Her name is not Ariel. Neither does the Sea Witch. Her name is not Ursula. They're just the Little Mermaid and the Sea Witch. So the Little Mermaid wants to go up to land, but they can only go, I think, at a certain after a certain age, and she's always dreamed of, like, the land. So that is accurate to the cartoon. However, she goes to the Sea Witch and she makes a deal, and she trades her tongue for, like, a spell to go up into land. Hello, here. What are you doing? Okay, so the Little Mermaid trades the spell for her tongue. So the Sea Witch cuts her tongue off. Okay, that is why she can't talk, because she has no tongue. It's so disturbing. And then she tries to get Eric. I don't think that's his name. He's just a prince. But she tries to get him to fall in love with her, but he doesn't. And he does fall in love with another woman. And she only had until he got engaged to someone else or married to someone else to get him to fall in love with her. And so then the Little Mermaid's sisters go to the Sea Witch and they're like, please, there must be some way we can save her, because she's going to turn into sea foam if she doesn't get him to fall in love with her. So basically all of the sisters give the Sea Witch their hair in return for some way to save their sister. So now there's all these bald mermaids coming up to save the Little Mermaid. And basically the spell that she gives her is, she gives her a knife and she's like, you can unalive the prince and save yourself. And the Little Mermaid's like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. And then she thus becomes unalived by the spell. What a time to be alive. Anyways, I'm gonna read it again and see how much of this was actually accurate, because that's just what I remember. I read that months ago. We shall see.
Here's the thing. We started out friends. It was cool, but it was all pretend. Yeah. Since you've been gone. I am Delulu at this point in the evening. It's bedtime. That is why I'm in my bed. However, I am determined to finish this book today. I'm having a fantastic time. Like, fantastic. I have like 80 pages left, so I feel like I can do it. Anyways, let's talk about The Little Mermaid. I think that's where I left off. I got most of the story right, but there's like major elements of the story that I don't think it went over my head. It might have. The thing is, there's definitely this one aspect where the Little Mermaid, basically from the Sea Witch, she can't walk without feeling a pain in her legs, as if a sword was like being jammed up her feet. And it's so disturbing to watch these descriptions, because like her feet literally bleed, and she says it's like one of the most painful experiences. However, being with the prince is worth it. I need to rewind. There's a like a major element of the story. So there is a lot of like Christianity and like Christian beliefs infused into this story, and also in like a couple of other ones in this book. I feel like I don't feel like, they literally say it. The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen influenced many other mermaid stories, and you can definitely tell like the religious undertones. But in general, in a lot of these stories across cultures, it's believed that mermaids don't have mortal souls like humans do. So in the Little Mermaid, it's like, you know, it ails her that she's not able to live forever, have like eternal life in heaven and rise up to heaven like a human would. So mermaids have definitely longer lives, but they are kind of cursed to like turn to sea foam when they die. And so that is one of the major motivators for the Little Mermaid coming up onto the land. And the prince is kind of like a little extra thing, you know, because the way that a mermaid can have eternal life and go up to heaven is by marrying a prince. Because biblically, when a man and a woman marry, they unite into one soul. And so this is the only way that a mermaid can acquire like a human type soul and have eternal life and go up. So once the mermaid decides that she's not going to unalive the prince and spare him, and she passes away and turns to sea foam, she's actually visited by these like air fairies. And based on like what the description is, I think it's literally just a bubble. So she turns into a bubble out of grace, and she's able to live out as a bubble for like 100 years and then rise up to heaven. So there are really strong religious undertones in this story. This book later goes on to describe other stories that are very similar to the Little Mermaid, but either like much more sexually infused, or like more aggressive, to be honest. There's this one story where the mermaid is able to come to land, but once she gets there, there's like these alternate like endings. She in one in all of them she has to cut her tail. In one of them she cuts her tail in half, and that allows her the ability to have legs and walk on land. There's an alternate ending where she has to cut her legs and she bleeds until she's no longer alive, and then is done. And this story is really interesting and disturbing because it turns out that the mermaid, once she's no longer alive, she turns into a tree, and the tree eventually gives way to her becoming like her spirit going into the body of this like school teacher. And so she's like a school teacher, and the prince soul goes into the body of a little kid in her 3rd grade class. I don't remember how, but she's aware that he is the prince in that body. And I think the kid is starting to come to the realization that she's the mermaid in the body of the teacher. And honestly, it feels very disturbing, like this teacher is grooming a child. Why are fairy tales so disturbing? Like, I never thought that this was I'm so shocked. I continue to see themes and trends in the Asian mermaid tales
there's more of a trend of belief that if a human eats the flesh of a mermaid, they will live forever. That's gross. Continue to see like the number 3 and like things happening in 3s and stuff like that, which is really interesting. And people are very obsessed with marrying mermaids. But they do tend to believe like if they marry a mermaid, they tend to have like a lot of fortune, like good fortune, typically with money. So that's interesting. And it's also really interesting too that you know, there's like the whole belief that sirens lure men to the ocean and then they drown, but in a large majority of these stories, the mermaids are coming to land and the men are becoming infatuated with them and marrying them. There's one story where the guy literally has like 100 concubines and he ditches all of them and all his wives and is like, I'm only going to be faithful to this one mermaid. I love her. I'm obsessed with her. And that's what mostly happens. Almost every mermaid that comes to land marries a man who is like obsessed with her. It's very strange. I also just saw in the back of this book that they have the Penguin Book of Witches. And that sounds super interesting. Because it's like, you know, like real stories about like witch hunts and stuff. So, I don't know. This is becoming a trend. Maybe. This book is really good. Having a great time. All right, friends, we're finished here. I honestly thought that I would be like sick of mermaids at this point, but I'm kind of interested to read and find out more. Like, I'm feeling very much in a mermaid vibe, especially I think sirens, like stories where like sirens are luring men and like they're evil. Like, I'm thinking about the show Once Upon a Time. Yeah, Once Upon a Time, the Snow White retelling that like, anyways, if you know, you know, if you don't, I'm sorry, because I don't know, it seems. Let's do a quick roundup. So first I finished The Little Mermaid and Other Fairy Tales. I did read the other fairy tales when I first read this. They were kind of disappointing. However, the Little Mermaid story, my mind is blown. The story of the Little Mermaid itself, I would give 4 stars. I would give the rest of this book in its entirety maybe 3 stars. I think that I will forever think about the fact that the Little Mermaid could not sing for the prince. Like, he was trying to pick a queen. She couldn't sing for him, so she danced instead, even though every time she walks, her feet feel like she's being stabbed with knives, and they even bleed. And he is so like entertained by the fact that she can dance that he says, yes, you will sit and sleep in this little bed outside my bedroom like a dog. And he calls her his little foundling, and he walks around with her and all this stuff like she's a dog, but won't marry her, and then ends up making her be unalive because he won't marry her and he marries someone else. My mind is blown. Anyways, that being said, that also makes me think about a second version in the Penguin Book of Mermaids, where it's much more disturbing and much more rude, because instead of just keeping her as like a pet outside his room, he keeps her like a plaything in the bedroom, okay? And he has his way with her whenever he wants. However, he still marries someone else and still plans to keep having his way with her even though he's married, which is so messed up to me on so many different levels.
I feel so bad for the Little Mermaid. Anyways, that being said, loved this book. There were definitely some parts that I felt were a little dull. Like I was like, why is this in here? It's literally just a very small account of something, sometimes vaguely related to a water spirit or mermaid. However, for the most part, I really did enjoy this, and it really did pique my interest because they're not just mermaid stories. They're mermaid stories told like across cultures that are things people actually believe. So that makes it even more interesting and makes me want to know a lot more about mermaid folklore and stuff like that. So I gave this 4 stars. I think I said that. And then a book I didn't talk about. I didn't read it when I first picked it up in this vlog. To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. I did end up reading this last month, which is a little bit later than when I said I picked it up. And this is basically it's like a darker retelling of The Little Mermaid. The main character, I think her name is Lyra. She's a princess. She's a siren. And so she's able to lure men to her, like seamen. And then she drowns them and she keeps their hearts. So one of the, like, essentially the sirens in this book, they can get a heart every year on their birthday, but Lyra goes off and gets one when it's not her birthday. And to punish her, her mom, the queen, then banishes her to be a human and live amongst the humans, where she meets the prince. And yeah, so the story goes. My problem with this book is that it's not the book itself. I don't know if I just wasn't in the mood for it when I read it, but I had a hard time like keeping my focus and paying attention to the story. Like I kept forgetting to pay attention. So I don't know if that's because it wasn't actually enjoyable or because I wasn't in the mood for it. Either way, I want to keep this around and maybe pick it up again in the future. It wasn't a bad book. I gave it 3 stars. I just think that it just wasn't capturing my attention at the time that I picked it up. Anyways, you can probably hear all the door slamming. People have made it home, so I'm gonna go tend to that. But I hope y'all enjoyed this. If you did, leave me a mermaid in the comments. Hit that like button if you want to see more of this. If you want to join the family, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you all when I see you next. Bye.